Hey brothers, what's going on? JK, your brother in this struggle. On my way back from the gym, and today we're going to be talking about cheating and why it is good to cheat. Now, when we were growing up in kindergarten, middle school, high school, college, university, the purpose of these institutions was to help us to educate ourselves, understand the basics of the way our society works, and in a certain sense indoctrinate us into being good, cultured, obedient members of society, which is important to a certain extent. And when it came to tests and homeworks and all the things that we use to grade our progression through this system, whenever you sought out somebody's help, which means whenever somebody gave you the answer, somebody had taken the test before, and they were like, hey man, here are the answers to this test because I heard you failed it many times, that was considered cheating. And it was considered cheating because if you didn't do that by yourself, then you would graduate into society as somebody, or into that profession, as somebody who was actually incapable of doing the work. Now, none of us ever wants to end up on the surgery table of a surgeon who cheated his way through medical school, right? We don't want to do that, so it is good. However, for many of us, when we graduate, when we move on in life, we carry this attitude with us that in order for us to get better and better, we need to do things and figure things out on our own. And we apply this to everything in our life. Literally, I want to get better at working out, so I need to figure it out on my own. I want to get better at my job, my career, running my business, improve my marriage. I have to figure it out. So we do the things that we were trained to do growing up. We will buy books and read them and study them the way we study textbooks. We will do all these things because we think that's what needs to happen. The reality is that life is short. You don't have time to learn everything that you need to learn. There are some things that actually take a lifetime or many, many years to get competent at on your own. For instance, when you get into a long-term relationship, this is not something you master right away. All long-term relationships are going to have their ups and their downs, going to ebb and flow, and you're going to have to figure it out over time. You can't just read a book about relationships and fix it immediately or in a couple of months. Things like rebooting, ending an out-of-control behavior. You can't just read a book and fix it immediately. You can, but it's not going to be immediate. And the question we keep asking ourselves is, when we have a problem in our lives, is how do I fix this problem? How do I fix it? Now, when you were in college and there was an exam that you couldn't pass, right? You're like, how can I pass this exam? It would involve studying, understanding the questions, the concepts behind it, the ideas behind it, truly understanding the material. And then you go take the test several times or whatever the case may be, and eventually you pass it. But in college, what would have been the easiest way to pass the exam? The easiest way to pass the exam, not necessarily the most helpful, would have been to get the answers from somebody who had taken the exam before. And they're like, hey, here are the answers. You pass the exam immediately in one take, one time. All right? Now, there is a moral and ethical issue behind that. But with many other things in life, there is nothing morally or ethically wrong with getting the answers. I remember when I was struggling to get laid. I was struggling to get laid. I really was. I didn't want to be a virgin. I wanted to not only lose my virginity, I wanted to have sex with multiple women. That was something that was important to me when I was 18, 19, 20. No longer important to me today. Right? But it was a priority. And it was unheard of to seek answers from somebody else, right? Yeah, sure, you could have a buddy who was good with women give you advice and tips, but to have somebody actually walk you through the process and say, this is exactly what you say to her, this is how you text her, this is how you speak to her on the phone, this is how you dress, how you look, this is your tonality, this is your body language, this is the way women actually think, and here's what she thinks when you say this and when you do that. Here's the way to touch her the right way. Here's the way to turn her on. Here's how to have sex. Here's how to have sex with her in a way that makes her want to keep coming back. Here's how to maintain multiple short-term casual relationships, right? To get help for that, it's not the way we typically think. We go like, well, like that's cheating. Now you're not thinking that consciously, you're actually thinking that unconsciously. And so it was ridiculous to me to seek help from somebody. But I remember I used to follow Mark Manson, one of my first mentors, and he back then kept a blog that was strictly on dating, markmanson.net. I think he's removed a lot of those articles, but back then the articles on meeting women were gold. And I would read them, consume them, read all his email newsletters, and it actually helped me. I actually eventually lost my virginity. And I was like, wow, this stuff is good. And one day I vividly remember reading a blog post of his. So I was texting a couple of girls, and I remember him saying that he wasn't going to be coaching for a while, and he was traveling off to South America. And so I decided in that moment that, you know what, I'm going to learn from this guy, because if this guy could help me just through his blog posts and his emails to lose my virginity and to make all this progress, then certainly if I were to work with him directly, he would give me the cheat code, so to speak, to resolving this area of my life. Because I wanted to do other things, don't get me wrong. Sex wasn't the only thing I was thinking of. I remember feeling guilty about the idea of seeking the help of this man. I remember feeling less than a man. I remember feeling, man, you must be a loser to need a dating coach, right? It's like, I suppose, the way somebody would feel if they couldn't pass an exam and they needed to buy the answers from somebody who was better at them. Like, man, I feel like a loser. I can't pass this test on my own. I should. Everybody else is passing it and I'm cheating. And that's literally how I felt. And the amount of money I spent was in the thousands, and I didn't even have it. So I had to go into debt to pay for this coach for Mark. And that made me feel even worse. Like, I felt shame, like I'm an unworthy person. But I went ahead with it, as shameful as I was. And the experience turned out to be absolutely liberating. Because as I did that, as I went through that process, I realized that I couldn't have done this on my own. There was no way I was going to go out and speak to that many women in a day and take that much rejection. And there was no way I could have done it without a supportive coach who I would get a rejection, I'd come back in the evening, would sit down in a bar and we'd talk, and he'd say, hey man, here's where you fucked up, here you could do this better, and we would go out the next day and do it again. I couldn't have done it on my own, and I knew that. I had to admit it. It was a humbling experience for me. I came back, I've told this story many times, my life changed. I resolved that area of my life when it came to women and dating, and I went through that process, and I got it out of my system, so to speak, having sex with a variety of women and whatnot. And I ended up in a long-term relationship, which I've been in for about a decade right now. And I'm very happy as well. But when I came back, I realized that, man, this was so eye-opening and I couldn't have done it on my own. What are the other areas of my life where I'm struggling? Because the lesson I learned was, it is not asking how. Like, how do I fix this? How only got me blog posts and videos and all that stuff. But asking who. Like, who can actually help me? That changed everything. Because how is going to have a lot of theory, a lot of studying, a lot of time, and I did not have that time. Time was my most valuable asset. But who contained the cheat code? Because who was always somebody who had been there before. And somebody who has been there before will tell you something that a book, you would need to read 300 pages of a book and then sit down and take notes and think about it to get the answer. But who will tell you, dude, just quit doing this, just stop that. But no, stop it, dude, just stop doing this. Completely stop this and do this instead. Boom. Like literally 1 year of learning shaved off your life. You didn't need to understand the why, you didn't need to understand the concept, you didn't need to understand anything. You just needed to stop doing that. And so, brothers, the message I have for you guys today is that resistance that you feel to seeking help, okay, and let me make it clear, all right? Yes, it would be helpful for you to work with somebody to end your out of control behavior, right? But you don't need to work with me. This is a general message. I think it's obvious at this point that I have an amazing coaching program, an amazing group coaching program. But many of you need to start finding the who in other areas of your life. When it comes to your fitness, when it comes to finances, when it comes to dating, when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your mental health, there's so many things in your life that you're being held back in, and you refuse to find the who. I've had guys who were in my program who they were struggling in business, right? Trying to start a business, some sort of online hustle, and they were doing well in their Reboot, but they were just dying in business, because business can be a real battlefield. I truly believe business is where men are really tested today, right? If it's not in violence and fighting, then it is business. It is literally an ocean where sharks are out there, and you go in and you've got to survive and become a shark yourself. And these guys were being crushed, and they asked me for advice, and I'm like, yeah, I give a little bit of business advice here and there, but I am your Reboot coach, where you need to find somebody to help you in this area of your life. It takes them a while to come around because they still have that feeling that they're cheating if they can't figure it out on their own, right? So ask who, don't ask how. And a final thing to remember is that when it comes to changing important aspects of your life, it isn't transactional. And many of you guys think it's transactional. And what I mean by transactional is you look at something and you go like, oh, I gotta pay for this, or I gotta give up time for this. What is the value that this is gonna bring in my life? And then you start comparing, right? You're like, well, I could spend this money on buying this number of books or doing this, and I would get maybe the same value as this. That's the wrong way to think about it. And take it from me, because I spend well over 5 figures right now a month on my own coaches, on the coaches who coach me in different aspects of my life. But I am able to spend that money without any guilt. It just comes out automatically from my accounts, because I view the coaching that I have chosen to do as transformational, not a transaction. I literally look at it and I go, how is this going to make me better in the future? That's all I see. I'm not interested in what it's going to take away from my bank account, because the stuff in my bank account can always be replenished, regardless of how long it takes. But what I'm going to learn from this individual is going to stay with me forever. And I don't mean that in a cliche way. I mean it in a very serious way. I'm very picky about who I choose to invest in. And I make sure that they are the best. And even if they aren't the best, I make sure that whatever I'm going to learn from them, like, hey, you may not be the best at this, but there's a concept, there's something you teach that I've been trying to grasp for many years, and I haven't been able to. And so whatever it takes, I'm going to get in contact with you, and I'm going to learn it from you. I'm going to absorb that, make it part of my DNA, and keep moving forward in life. All right? So brothers, who, not how, and view any sort of personal development that involves somebody that is coaching you, or who is showing you the way, or who has seen the movie before, view it as transformational and not transactional. If you ever feel it is transactional after a certain period of time, well then you probably didn't make a good enough decision, right? You probably picked somebody just on a whim, you made an emotional decision, and you weren't really certain that this person could help you, right? I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you later on in the week. Now, whenever you're ready, there are a few ways that I can help you to end your out of control behavior with porn, sex, and masturbation. The first way, brother, is to download a copy of my free book if you haven't already. It's called Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men, and it's the blueprint to ending your out of control behavior permanently. The second way is to join our free Facebook group. It's called the Porn Reboot group, and it's a wonderful group where you can find an accountability partner. It's a group where you can make friends and you can be part of a community that helps you release and let go of all the shame that has been holding you back. It's also a community of men who are actually following the system. There's no semen retention bullshit in there. I love semen retention, by the way, but what I'm saying is that there's no woo-woo stuff. Everything we speak about is very practical and useful to wherever you find yourself in your recovery journey. And finally, if you feel that you're at a point where time is precious to you, you would like to end this behavior faster, you would like a predictable system, you would like to be in a system where you know what's going to happen. You're like, okay, cool, a month from now, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to experience this particular withdrawal symptom. I'm going to deal with it in this particular way, right? Then our group coaching program might be a good fit for you. If you're a business owner, an executive, or a high performance professional in your career and you don't have time, you're cranking out 60 hours a week, you've got a wife, you've got kids, and you probably have only about 2 hours to give to your reboots. And that's the reason why you haven't taken any action on your own. The only action you're taking is watching these videos. Then we have the perfect program for you. We have a program that basically you can do everything you need to do and control your behavior in 90 days by just giving it about 30 minutes a day, each day of the week. All right, so speak to one of my team members and find out if you're a good fit, okay? You guys have a wonderful day. Speak to you later. Bye.